Hello, my name is Barney Martin. I'm a Senior Marketing Manager at Compare the Market, and this is my Duvet flip.
I think courage comes before confidence.
Yes.
What did Compare the Market give you that gave you the confidence?
I think it's about having great people in the organisation that put trust in you. You see people exhibiting that courage and trust in you, I think it builds that confidence in you over time.
3 words: great people, value and trust.
Yeah. Immediately kind of puts that sense of empowerment and trust into you as an individual.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
I think we kind of spoke about it before a little bit, but it's...
So Barney, welcome to my duvet flip. How are we?
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks a lot for having me.
You're in the sea.
I'm in the...
You're in the sea. I've been so excited because when I got your profile over around your career, you've achieved so much in such a small amount of time. It's amazing.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say, Jack, coming from you especially. So thank you.
You know what? Today we're gonna break it all down and we're gonna learn so much. I wanna hear about your thinking. But before we get into a bit about Compare the Market and what you do at Compare the Market, I want to talk a little bit about you. Like, where did it start? You're obviously in marketing. Why marketing? There's so much I want to talk about, and how that's kind of who's been around there to support you. But tell me a little bit about your first job. Where was that? And if Barney was looking back at his younger self, just leaving uni now, what would he be saying to him?
Well, my first job was when I was 14. I worked as a waiter, doing like corporate events, so like waiting tables and serving kind of drinks and stuff. And I hated it. Like, I absolutely hated it. So I'm like a real like early morning person, not a night owl. They were like evening events that ran till like 1, 2 in the morning. And I remember thinking, if I learned anything, it was that it's really important to me to enjoy what I do. I remember waking up and going to those shifts like, oh, I'm absolutely dreading this and not looking forward to it. So I think looking back on younger me, I think I'd say, it's okay. There are really interesting jobs out there and ways to spend your career. That would be the big message from looking back there. So
the learning is that go and do a job,
yeah,
but think about, is this something I can see myself doing more often?
Yeah, and what it tells you about what you do and don't enjoy, I think, is really important. So like that role, I really didn't enjoy it, but actually the interesting thing and the fun thing was working with like-minded young people who had similar interests to me, a similar place in my life. So the people were like really important. That's what made that first job bearable to me, was like other like people that had like similar interests and also like different interests and perspectives and working as part of a team. So I think always trying to find the things that you don't enjoy, but also like the things that you do enjoy and what that tells you about you and what really like fires you up and what makes things enjoyable in your life, I think is really important. So there's always something in there, I think.
And that thing that fires you up, how do you find it? Like, because it's really easy. You might actually go into a role and you go, you know what? It's paying, I'm going to learn a bit, and you know what, the people are great. But you get in there, but the actual job is just not for you.
Yeah.
Can you go into a job and think to yourself, it's not for me, give it a little bit of time, and then realise it's the thing that fires you up?
Yeah, I think you can, right? And I think it comes back to that thing of like, you've got to do stuff to learn that. So like, definitely like, now I've had a relatively short career so far, but always try to do like new and different things, and not necessarily things on paper that I thought would be like really fun or are going to be my forever job, but going into that kind of new opportunity and learning, thinking about, okay, what could it tell me about me, and like what could it tell me about what I think I do want to be doing in 5-10 years time, and having that long-term perspective on those sorts of opportunities, I think is like really, really valuable, because you do just learn by doing, right? That's the only way to have those new experiences, is to be open-minded and say yes to things and give it a go. And I think sometimes you might really surprise yourself. Like, I've definitely done things and thought, that's definitely not going to be for me. And actually there's elements of it that I've really enjoyed and like have shaped what I wanted to do in the future, and then the same vice versa as well.
Absolutely. And saying yes to the right things, how do you say no to the wrong things?
I think you've got to really like look at why you would say yes to something and be like really critical on what your actual like inner motivations are, versus what you think like other people might think, or like what on the surface level. It's really like understanding like who you are and like what is going to drive you and get you up in bed in the morning. So I think it's really important to be able to say no as much as it is to say yes at the same time sometimes, because there will be new things that look shiny and interesting, but actually like how is that going to serve you and the things that you really care about in the long time. So I do think you have to be really critical with it and with yourself, and look kind of that surface level below like the initial yes no, and actually what is it that would drive a yes, and what would happiness and success look like in that new thing for you, I think is really important.
Absolutely. I always look at it as if I'm going to say yes to something, it means that I'm going to have to say no to something else. Because I've only got two pairs of hands. And am I willing to say yes to this thing to say no to something that I'm already doing, or something that may come along that I don't want to say no to? So you're totally right. It's working out how to balance it, right? What to say yes to, what to say no to,
100%.
In a way. What was the hardest thing that you thought was about work that became your easiest thing? Because we have these, we see this thing as work, don't we? And we go into work and you think, okay, am I going to learn? Am I going to grow? Oh, there's this or there's that, or it's going to be like this. And you go in there and it's all things in your head that actually just not true. What was it for you going into the workplace?
I think so. Like my first like full-time role, like working at Compare the Market 5.5 years ago, I think the thing that really surprised me, and I think it's like really important, like the work that you do, like similarly, is like no one teaches you like what that like magic currency in the workplace is. I remember like starting that first role, it was in kind of like SEO and social and content. And I remember like there's probably like perspectives that I had then that I talk about in our organisation now and that we use and explore. But back then I didn't know how to articulate any of that stuff. So you kind of ended up sitting on your hands with really great ideas that actually you think have real value, but you don't really know how to express them, and why is it that this person is able to like put forward this perspective and people buy into it? How do you access that kind of social currency or that kind of magic thing that no one really teaches or tells you about? So I think that was a thing that when I first started, I found really difficult and interesting, was to say like, how do you get in those conversations? How do you drive those conversations? And how do you build that confidence in yourself to be able to do that and take people along on that journey with your ideas? I think especially in like the world that I work in brand and marketing, it is a lot about people and bringing people along on that journey of understanding and shared exploration as well. So I think that was the thing that I found really difficult in the first place, was like, what is that special sauce that no one tells you about that helps you to get things done? And trying to learn that through trial and error, I think is difficult, but like really important.
You talk a little bit about confidence. I think courage comes before confidence. How has Compare the Market helped you build your confidence? Because it's really easy to not put your hand up. You've got great ideas. Obviously, I can see all your great ideas now coming to fruition with the brand and what you do, because Compare the Market's branding is brilliant, by the way. I really love it. But like, what did Compare the Market give you when you're making this special sauce? Like, what were the things across your work at Compare the Market that gave you the confidence?
I think it's about having great people in the organisation that put trust in you and say, actually, like, go and do that thing, like create that psychological safety to say like I trust you, go out there, and like it's okay to fail, like we can start fires and put them out, like explore like what great looks like for you, and I'm going to be here and supporting you through that. So I think it is about having great line managers and great mentors that give you that courage and they give you that trust to say, look, go out and do this thing, I absolutely believe in you, and look, if we make some mistakes along the way, that's all part of the process. So I do think it goes back to that thing about having great people and great people around you that really makes you build that confidence and courage in yourself, because you see it reflected in the people around you that you really look up to and admire. So if you see people exhibiting that courage and trust in you, I think it builds that confidence in you over time. So I really think it's about Compare the Market, the great people that we have and the trust that we put in people in our organisation, and especially like young people coming through on the graduate scheme. I think it is a real cultural point of view around and shared understanding of the value and the trust that we want to put into that next generation of leaders. I think if you ask anyone on the exec or across the business at Compare the Market, they'll tell you how much we value that next generation of young people, and we want to see them go from the graduate scheme all the way up into SLT and onto the exec as well. So I think it is a cultural
SLT
point.
meaning?
Senior leadership team, sorry. Yeah. I think it is a point of like cultural trust and great people that give you the courage and confidence, and seeing that in other people reflected gives it to yourself.
3 words: great people, value and trust.
Yeah.
They're 3 words that you should kind of, I know one's 4, I've got 2 words in it, but they're the things that you should be looking for when working for any organisation, right? I want to break them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah? Like, what makes the people great at Compare the Market for you? Like you say you've got great people.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I've met several people already and you're all fantastic. Like, but what makes the people great? Because what's pulling all these great people in?
Yeah.
But then you go into another organisation and they may not be so great.
Yeah. I think there is and it goes back to like our values. I think some companies have values and they don't live by them. So our like values of being like united, authentic, ambitious, and creative, I do think we really live by those. And I think what you get across all of those is like people that are genuinely like kind and curious and open-minded people, that mean that the conversations that you're having, there's a shared understanding of wanting to get better and wanting to improve and really valuing other people's perspectives in the organisation. So I think that's really important, that everyone is working to a similar goal. We have a real clarity around what our purpose and value is to customers in the UK, and bringing people into the organisation that absolutely buy into that. I think those values become really apparent really quickly, and it is so important to live by those. I genuinely do think we have the people that do that. So I think that alignment of like culture and values through to people is like absolutely key, and I think we have it in bucket loads with the people that we have.
You can see that. And in terms of trust, give me like a story where the organisation's trusted you, and you've kind of taken that trust and it's given you so much superpower, and it started to create that special sauce. Like, give us some examples where that's happened.
I think the big example for me would be last year. So I spent some time out in South Africa working with Telesure Investment Holdings, who are part of our kind of Compare the Market broader shareholder group. And it was the first time that we've kind of done something like an international secondment. So like immediately, like putting the trust in me to kind of go out there and be almost a representative of our brand, our values, and the things that we do, and share those learnings, like immediately kind of puts that sense of empowerment and trust into you as an individual. And that was like an incredible experience in which...
More than an incredible.
Yeah.
Like, how much? Tell me how you felt when like that opportunity came across, because like we want to give you the opportunity to go, was it South Africa?
Yeah.
For 6 months to go and learn.
Yeah.
And then bring wisdom and energy back, and we're trusting you to do it.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, and to be honest, like, I've always wanted to have that experience of like living and working abroad. And like, funnily, like it wasn't, that I was at like a point in my career where I was kind of actively looking for something new. I was doing a role that I was really enjoying at the time, like working within the team. But like when something like that comes along, I think, it's impossible to say no almost. And yeah, it was incredible to think about like what that could mean for my career when I spoke to the people that I really trusted around me about what that opportunity could look like, could do for me professionally and personally. Yeah, it was a really amazing moment, and definitely the experience absolutely kind of lived up to that in terms of everything that I learn from like a professional perspective, but also like about me as a person, kind of going out there on my own in a new country, a new city, new people, new organisation, doing all of that in the space of 6 months it's life-changing in a lot of ways. And I think the stuff that I brought back, obviously I learned stuff professionally, but I think the stuff I learned about myself is probably the stuff that is actually probably more valuable to me and my career and to Compare the Market as well. So yeah, it was amazing. It was.
And what's some of the stuff you learned? If you don't like the things that you want to share, like what are some of the stuff that you learned?
Yeah.
Because me getting on a plane for the first time to go to another country.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. I think I learned a lot about like who I am, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And when you work in an organisation for a while, like I have at Compare the Market, got great people around me, but there is a level of like comfort, right? So like I know that the kind of core people that I work with, how they view me, how I view them. So going into a completely different business with different culture and different people, and then working out those new relationships, the projects that you go on, the people that you bring along on that journey, getting like a different pair of eyes on you and how they respond and react to you in certain like situations and projects, I think teaches you a lot about yourself, and it gives you like a really new fresh perspective on like who you are as a person, like how you appear to other people as well. So I think I learned a lot about the things I'm good at, and definitely like reinforce some areas of strength. I think, okay, like that works in the UK and it also works in South Africa with these people, but also like more bringing to life some of the weaknesses as well that you probably have got comfortable with in your environments, and like how you work through those and navigate those on a daily basis. But they kind of become laid bare again when you have to navigate this whole new situation and context within your life. So yeah, absolutely, it was really, really interesting from that perspective.
What would you have done differently if you were to be given that opportunity again for the first time?
Yeah.
Because all in hindsight, right? There's things that you do. You might have packed an extra pillow for the plane, but what would you have done differently when it come to learning and growth? Like, what were the things you would have done differently? Now reflecting on it.
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation, like with my line manager at the end of the 6 months. So I had like a mentor there, to reflect on that conversation, which is amazing. And like part of like the emphasis that we place at Compare the Market on learning is matching you up with the right people that can have those really candid and honest conversations. And she said to me, if you were to change one thing, what would you have done? And I kind of sat there and thought about it, and then she interrupted me and said, like, I can tell you and give you my perspective. She said, I think you should have been ballsier from the start and come in and shed more perspectives, like, and try to implement change from earlier on. Because I think I spent probably the first couple of months, 2 or 3 months, trying to build those meaningful relationships, kind of suss out like how things work, like how I can start to add value. But I think like her perspective was actually like if you can come in and kind of make that difference even from day one, even in the conversations you're having and the approaches, I think that could have added even more value. So I think I probably would have had more confidence in those early meetings to say, oh, so like, oh, we do things that way here, like why is that? And challenge a little bit more like proactively. So having like more confidence to do that in the right way. Because I think like what she was saying is, I think like what one of my strengths is I can build like that really good rapport with people that I work with. And so she was saying you had the license from very early on to do that kind of like proactive and kind of constructive challenging. Actually, I would have liked to have seen you come out of your shell even earlier than you did, especially in a short 6-month time frame. It's not a lot of time to make a change and a difference. So I think I probably would have, just gone a little bit earlier in terms of like really like challenging and trying to make a difference. But yeah, lots to learn, I think.
And how, if someone's going into a situation, whether it's a meeting, whether it's an opportunity to go and work internationally, or whether it's working on a new project, how do they know what balance to get? Because you could have went in there very confident, bold, and people could have looked around and said, oh, I wished he learnt a little bit more before he came. Because it's either. Right. So how did you learn that?
Yeah, I think it's about knowing the people around you and like trying to build those meaningful relationships and allies in the business as soon as you can. Work out the people that you think can be really effective in bringing about that personal change with you. So there was like a couple of like amazing colleagues that I met in South Africa and did some work with them that I was like really proud of while I was there. And I think I worked out very early on like who those people were. So I think if you can, building those relationships and really spending time with people from day one, I think prioritizing people as much as you can to understand the organization and the people that you'll be working with. I think that'll give you a much clearer view on like how you can enact that meaningful change and where to strike that balance between things that you can get on with quite quickly and things that might take more time in terms of like understanding the people and the processes. So I think for me it was about prioritizing face time with people, understanding the business, understanding them, and then where those pockets where you can have influence and play a role to drive that meaningful change. So it always comes back to people, I think.
So what I'm hearing is to truly learn at work, you have to build relationships with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that goes into like beyond like learning on the job. It's even like the things you do like extracurricular, as it were. So like, for example, I think Compare the Market, I've probably done 3 or 4 kind of big pieces of learning. So when I joined, we on the part of the graduate scheme, you do a level 6 apprenticeship in kind of like marketing theory. So that was the first one. A couple of years later, I did like a mini brand MBA as I was really building my knowledge in brand. And then this year I'm doing a level 7 in kind of business leadership. All 3 of those things, like I didn't actively seek out and say to the business, like there's this course I've seen that I want to do it. Actually, the business and my line managers and mentors brought those opportunities to me. And that's because I built those relationships with those people and had those conversations to say that I'm really passionate about learning and I want to grow and I want to develop. And so when those conversations are happening in the business, my line manager or my mentor is like, Barney would be a great person for that because he's really passionate about developing. So it is, I think it comes back to those meaningful relationships that you build, having people in your corner that are always like on the lookout for you with different new opportunities that can stretch you and grow you. So I think, yeah, building those relationships and putting learning at the forefront of your agenda whenever you're showing up in different ways across the business with different people will help, you know, that shared understanding of like really what you want to deliver and achieve within your own career, and people can help you along that journey. And it comes back to having great people in the business that really genuinely believes in the importance of learning. And so I think that's really important. But yeah, it comes back to having those great relationships and mentors as well.
So Barney, I keep hearing about squiggly careers. What is squiggly careers that Compare the Market? Tell me more.
Well, Squiggly Careers is probably like the best and only book that I've read, like as a since like I did English at university, so I spent 3 years reading books and then left university. Haven't barely read a book since, but that's the one book that I read, and yeah, massively like recommend. Squiggly Careers, I think, is about like embracing uncertainty and being willing to make different moves that, you know, stretch you in different ways, in different directions, whether that's vertically, but also like really importantly, horizontally. It's a massive focus and Compare the Market in particular about like broadening those horizons and learning new bits about the business in different areas that kind of make you a more well-rounded and capable individual. So yeah, for me, it's about embracing uncertainty, embracing new challenges and being curious and open-minded to learn more and get the most out of different experiences, because you don't learn anything new standing still, do you? So for me, it's all about, yeah, enjoying that ride and getting as much as you possibly can from new, varied and different experiences.
And have you always been open-minded and curious? Because I believe I'm now open-minded and curious, but I never was for a long time.
Interesting.
I was like, I don't want to move. I like so many things were like boxed.
Yeah.
Only because I was boxing myself in. But have you always had that kind of personality? And for those like me who have not always been kind of curious and open and let's do it.
Yeah.
What's your advice to us type of people?
That's interesting. So what do you think makes you now more open-minded and curious versus when you were younger?
Great people around me.
Okay, interesting. So I think that's the same for me, and I would say I have had that, always had that growing up. And I think it comes from like the figures of influence like early in your life are really, really important. So great teachers is an example of that. We're really lucky, like even at like primary school, having people that were passionate and made learning fun and interesting. But I think more fundamentally, like your family and friends.
So has your family been a real influencer in your life?
Yeah, hugely. I think both in terms of like my career and how I think about my career, but also like learning more generally. Like both of my parents are massively like curious and like open-minded people, and I think that rubs off on you from like a very like early age. You role model what you see around you, right? That's the importance of great teachers and people of influence. So yeah, I think my parents have been massive in shaping that in my early years, and I think that's kind of transformed into different mentors and line managers who are like that in my later years and kind of early career now.
And what's the difference between a mentor and line manager, and why is it important to have a mentor?
Yeah. I think like I always find it really interesting. So like I've probably had like one mentor probably in my time at Compare the Market, like officially, who's also like been my line manager at various points. But I've definitely had lots of mentoring conversations that aren't strictly from like a single person. So I've sought out advice in different ways from people who I think their perspectives give me like a really interesting viewpoint on a different challenge or next step. I think it's so important like to have that regular like feedback loop from people that you trust and can give you like interesting and new perspectives, or even re-articulate the challenge to you, because I think it will probably like help you to learn more. It goes back to like having those great people in your corners. But like I personally would say as well, I think there's a real difference between like a mentor and mentoring, like the noun and the verb almost, because some of the most important career conversations I've had have been with like family and friends who like don't work in the same industry as me, but like talking about their day to day and like what they enjoy and why that's important to them, have taught me massively and reflects on how I want to live my life and do my career. So I do think mentors are brilliant, and if you can find all of that within one person, then that's great. But it's also really valuable to have those different perspectives as you progress, and be really open-minded to where that kind of interesting career conversation might come from. Because for me, it's come from lots of different figures of influence, have all been brilliant in shaping my own perspectives and how I think about my career.
So mentoring doesn't just have to be this formal, professional, assign me a mentor and that's it. You have to take inspiration and influence from several different people inside and outside the organisation.
I think so, yeah. And I think we're really lucky at Compare the Market in that I talked about like great people, but genuinely like and generally people are really happy to have conversations and support you. So like I've had it before when I've kind of reached out to someone and said, look, can I just take like 20 minutes of your time? Like I'm thinking about this new thing in my career or a next step. And I think you'd be like a really interesting person to talk to about that. So I've had that kind of like one-off 20 minutes with different people, and it's been like massively valuable. So I think having that as part of the kind of culture where people are willing to share information and chat things through is really valuable. But yeah, and I think that is that difference between mentors and mentoring. It doesn't have to be like a 20-year relationship with that person in terms of a mentoring capacity. You can have conversations that are massively valuable as one-offs as well. So I think that's the way I've always looked at it, as like a very fluid thing. It's about helping me in my career and hopefully helping others as well. So yeah, definitely mentoring rather than mentors for me.
So, and then reach out, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't reach out asking for the 15-20 minute coffee, it's never going to happen.
No.
You have to put your first step forward as well, right?
Yeah, and that goes back to that thing about putting yourself out of your comfort zone, learning new experiences. You do have to put that best foot forward and seek out these experiences as much as you can.
And what's your advice to anyone who is seeking or having their first mentoring session?
Yeah, I think be really clear, like with that person, that mentor, exactly what you want to get out of that session and why like you would like to have that conversation with them, because at the end of the day, they're another person there. They might not be super clear on why you want to have that conversation, so you need to be able to articulate what you want from them as much as anything else, so that they can really be valuable and useful for you. So I think that's really important to kind of really articulate, like, what is the value of this conversation. I think it's always a risk where you like have mentors and mentoring conversations where it's just like, oh yeah, have my latest mentor conversation, and you get in there, you're like, actually, I don't have anything to say, or I don't know what I want to get out of this. So I think being really clear and like well prepared for those conversations to say, this is what I want to get out of it, this is why I'd like to have this conversation with you, I think is really important for you and for them to make it like a really useful and structured piece of time.
That's great advice. In terms of your career, so 2019, you joined Compare the Market. Like, what was that role? That was a graduate role?
So I worked in the graduate scheme. We do 4 different rotations, each being 6 months each, around different parts of marketing.
So a rotation is going around different job roles in the business?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
What are they?
So they can vary, but some of the core ones are around like brand planning, customer marketing as well. So really getting that kind of broad spectrum of different parts of marketing that give you the real fundamentals. So at the end of that 2 years, you know exactly what drives great outcomes for customers that Compare the Market and how the brand and marketing can deliver against that, really.
So you spend 6 months in each?
6 months in each, yeah.
And what was your favourite? Did you have a favourite?
So
you always, in anything in life, you always have, like, whether it's a tea brand or whether it's working in a certain team or on a certain project, you always have that kind of, I like that part of it.
Yeah, so my favourite is the one that I'm working in now, which probably doesn't surprise you. So I joined at the end of 2019, did 6 months, and then like COVID hit. And as COVID hit, I was moving into our brand planning team, so working on like delivering and executing the brand campaigns that you see across TV, social, radio, and everywhere. And obviously like a really difficult like time, but what we were able to do as a brand is like show up in like really new and important ways for customers. So we did like it's called like Meerkat Music, so we put on gigs with like Take That and Little Mix virtually. So those experiences that I got during that period were like amazing and super interesting and really like at the forefront of doing really exciting stuff for the brand. So that gave me like a real taste of that what we can do as a brand and deliver to customers is like really special, and creating those moments of connection that build that long-term brand affinity. And I really got the bug for that. So those experiences really,
they're cool projects,
really cool. Yeah, so definitely like shaped my long-term, and I'm in a kind of a similar role in that team now, working on all things.
What rotation was that? Like how many times?
Yeah, that was my second one.
Was that the second?
That was my second one, and I remember really like vividly now. So like thinking about like seeing new people come into the business on the Martin grad scheme, seeing that similar experience I have, where you might in your first or your second or your third rotation do something, you're like, right, this is it. Like I'm done. I don't want to do like another rotation because this is where I want to end up. And that was exactly me after my second one. I remember saying to my like line manager at the time, who's my line manager now, I don't want to do the rest of the graduate scheme. I want to see if there's like a role in this team because it served my purpose. And it's really funny now as I give the same advice to graduates coming through the business now as I got back then, which is, do those new experiences. Like, even if you don't think it's going to be right for you, the stuff that you'll learn in that extra 6-12 months is going to be massively influential for the rest of your career. And that was advice that I got, and I did my kind of
Was you like itching, going, I want to get back in the team?
I was done. But actually the time I spent in those other teams were like skills and like practices and knowledge that I still like massively rely on today, and have done in like the last couple of roles that I did. So I think, I definitely had that experience, but it is so important to like soak up as much variety as possible, which is why I think like graduate schemes like that, where you rotate around the business, are so valuable, because the skills you learn in each of the different ones are really unique and will help you massively in your like long-term career.
And then what happened next after? So you did the rotation.
Yeah.
And then you said, I know where I want to be.
Yeah. So a role luckily came up as a manager, moving back into that team where I did the second rotation, and I absolutely loved. So as soon as that came up, I was like, things just like work out well sometimes, and that worked out perfectly.
And what's your responsibility of your role now? So like, what do you look at? What do you get involved with? Like, how's the role shaped?
Yeah, so I work in our brand planning and strategy team. So it's really like understanding how we can deliver our message of making great financial decision making a breeze for everyone in the country to as many people in the country as possible. Done via primarily our meerkats that compare the market.
And there's a few around somewhere.
Yeah, they are. They're still around.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, but doing a lot of work and understanding our audiences and how we grow the brand for those people. Spent a lot of work over the last few months looking at like our future generations of compare the market customers, so particularly around like Gen Z and those emerging needs, which a massively different generation that are coming through now, and how they interact with the world around them is evolving and changing at real speed, and their figures of influence and how they see the category and see money generally is evolving, and how we evolve as a brand to meet those needs and make sure that we can serve as many customers as possible to support them in those financial journeys. What
is your ultimate tip for anyone who wants to go on a pathway of long life learning? Because I'm a big believer of long life learning. Yeah. Just when you think you know something, someone will know a little bit more and it will take your perspective into a whole new level. And I love learning. What's your tips to people?
I think it's always trying to align that learning with things that you find genuinely really interesting. So not everything you do, like course or bit of info, is going to be something you're like, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about that thing, but always trying to find the thread of why that's really important to you and that fires you up. Because I think like generally, like you're not going to do learning if you find it really boring. You need to find the reason why that you want to do that thing. And that might not always be immediately obvious. So I think it's really important to find that thread to say, okay, this is why I'm learning that new thing, because it really aligns with that interest I have, or with that new knowledge, and that's going to help me do this new project that is really exciting. So I think finding that thread is really important, but as much as you can as well, like holding yourself accountable to that. If you're a person that is passionate about learning, you need to make it a priority, like in your life and in your like day to day as well. I give the example, like I've always wanted to learn Spanish, and like every year it's like my New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm going to learn Spanish this year. Finally got onto Duolingo like a few hundred days ago, and that accountability of like my 1-day streak, my 50-day streak, my 100-day streak, holding myself accountability to that, I always make time for it in my day because it's important to me, and I have that really clear accountability. So no matter how busy I am, I always spend and find that 5 minutes. So I think accountability is also like really important in terms of like the reason why you do it, but also making sure you build that into your days and hold yourself.
But it's habits, right?
Yeah, habits, exactly.
And we've only got time for a few more questions. What's your invisible success? Like, what is your success at Compare the Market that we've not talked about yet, you can't find on your LinkedIn? What do you think has really made you a success? And what's visible? So for some people, like for instance, with me, it's if you say something, I can picture, memory it, and then say it back to you. Yeah. What is it for you that you believe is your kind of your invisible success?
I like that. I haven't heard that before. I think, like, for me, and not to say that, I'm still early in my career in terms of like success, but I think the things that I've found success in and the common thread for me is around like emotional intelligence and like understanding people like in the room. I think I know when someone is engaged by something, they're feeling like happy or sad, and I can use that to kind of like build those meaningful relationships and help people like through those projects and whatever it is we're doing. So yeah, I think having a real good grasp of people, like being open-minded and curious, but having that thread of emotional intelligence where I think I'm quite good at reading people and understanding how they're feeling in a situation, and how therefore I need to adapt my behaviours and my characteristics to suit them and work well and respond well to them as well.
Emotional intelligence is a powerful one, right? Yeah. If you know how to read a room or support a room, then that makes your whole life a lot better. Yeah. How to deal with things, right? Yeah. I believe it was your chairman, Debbie Hewitt, who came on the show, and she said, common sense is not that common. Yeah. And it's the same thing with the emotional intelligence, right? If you can build that emotional intelligence into your everyday work, you become a better team player, you learn more, and you become an all-rounder.
Yeah. I love that.
Are you ready for my final question?
Ready, yeah.
Are you ready for it, Barney? My final question is, what's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Yeah. I think we kind of spoke about it before a little bit, but it's people. I'm really lucky in that like the people in my life, whether that's the people I work with who are super talented and kind and engaging, or it's my family and friends, they're brilliant people and they make my day-to-day really enjoyable, fun and rewarding. So I get up every morning and I get to go and do a job that I really enjoy and work with really great people, and I get to spend my evenings with family and friends who I love and make me laugh and are really enjoyable to be around. So yeah, it's about the people that exist in my day-to-day that flips my duvet in the morning. It's really quite easy to get up.
So surround yourself with great people, right?
I think so. I
just want to say thank you for your energy, your kindness, for coming, joining us on the show. I know obviously it's your morning route.
Are we waving up to you, Fred?
No, I'll wave back. The meerkat might even wave as well. But I just want to say thank you for your energy, your kindness, sharing your career journey, and teach us a little bit about mentoring, long life learning, what it means to take opportunity. So Barney, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jack. It's been a pleasure.